Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of nostalgia? Not for a place you have visited in this lifetime, but for a home you cannot quite remember. It is a sensation that sits right behind the heart. A subtle vibration, a whisper, a feeling of belonging to something vast, ancient, and luminous. For centuries, mystics, oracles, and prophets have spoken of a coming time. They whispered of a golden age, a Satya Yuga, a light age, a foretold era where humanity awakens from its long sleep of division and remembers what it truly is. We often dismiss these stories as myths, metaphors, fairy tales for a paradise that never arrives. But what if the prophecy wasn't magic? What if it was physics? In the late 20th century, a voice emerged that bridged the gap between the laboratory and the temple. He wore a turtleneck, not a robe. He spoke in equations, not incantations. Yet Carl Sagan became one of the most profound prophets of the modern world. A messenger who gave scientific form to humanity's oldest spiritual truth, that we are not merely living in the universe. The universe is also living within us. Today, we are going to decode the prophecy of the coming light age, not through crystal balls, but through the lens of the cosmic perspective. We will explore how ancient texts align with modern astrophysics, why Sagan's voice is resurging now more than ever, and how you, yes, you, play a critical role in the timeline humanity is entering. Take a slow breath. Let the noise of the day fall away. We are about to travel from the dust of the earth to the edge of the cosmos. Let's go back long before telescopes, before equations, before the language of science existed. Let us return to the scrolls, the tablets, the chants, to the voices that try to describe the universe with nothing but intuition and awe. Across almost every ancient tradition, there's a core narrative about light. The Gnostics spoke of a divine spark trapped in matter. The Vedic texts describe the universe as a play of consciousness, a dance of energy. Hermetic teachings declared, as above, so below. For millennia, we assumed they were speaking in metaphor, that the light was symbolic, a poetic stand-in for goodness, wisdom, or moral purity. But then came the 20th century, and with it, our ability to peer into stellar nurseries and dying suns. And what we discovered was startling. The ancient texts weren't just being poetic, they were being literal. Carl Sagan revealed this ancient truth in one of the most iconic, world-shattering sentences ever spoken. The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies, were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of starstuff. Pause for a moment and let that truly land. This is the scientific confirmation of the mystics' prophecy. When the ancients said we are children of the light, they were correct. The heavy elements that allow you to stand, to breathe, to think, were forged in the blinding light of dying suns. The Golden Age prophecy describes a time when humanity realizes its own divinity. Sagan translated this into scientific terms. The light age is the era where we finally understand that our biology is cosmic. We're living through that decoding right now. For centuries, science and spirituality were framed as enemies. Science asking how, spirituality asking why. But the prophecy of the light age says these two rivers must eventually merge. And Sagan was the architect of that merger. He showed us that the cosmic ocean the ancients prayed to is not metaphor. It is real, a vast sea of darkness scattered with islands of fire. And by understanding that every atom in your body has journeyed through the furnace of a star, you unlock a new identity. You're no longer a small, isolated ego fighting for survival on a spinning rock. You are the universe looking back at itself. This realization is the first key to the prophecy. The coming light age isn't about a savior descending from the sky. It is about humanity realizing that the light has always been here, woven into our bones, encoded in our cells, waiting for the instruments capable of proving the ancients right. If the prophecy is real, Where are the signs? Look around you. Open your socials. Scroll your feeds. Turn on any news channel. Not to drown in the chaos, but to observe the pattern underneath it all. We are living in an age of extremes. Polarity everywhere. Conflict everywhere. But hidden beneath the surface noise, there's a hum, a tremor, a frequency that always appears before a major leap in human consciousness. Have you noticed the return of Carl Sagan's voice? 30, 40 years after his passing, his monologues, once aired on late-night PBS, are suddenly viral on TikTok, on YouTube edits, on Instagram Reels. Teenagers and young adults who never lived through the era of Cosmos are quoting him like scripture. Why? Because humanity is starving for meaning. Not religious dogma, not sterile materialism, something bigger, something cosmic. The Light Age Prophecy says that when humanity is ready to awaken, its messengers re-emerge in unexpected forms. Sagan's words have become a beacon, soft, scientific, poetic, guiding a generation overwhelmed by noise toward a higher perspective. And then there's the technology. The James Webb Space Telescope is not just a scientific instrument. It is a revelation engine. With every infrared snapshot, it is dismantling our old maps of the universe. Galaxies appearing too early. Structures too big. Stars forming in ways we don't fully understand. We're being told, quietly but firmly, that reality is stranger and more luminous than we were taught. Meanwhile, thousands of exoplanets are being cataloged. Water worlds, molten worlds, Earth-like worlds. The possibility that we are not alone has shifted from speculation to statistical certainty. Even governments, once allergic to such conversations, are releasing documents on unidentified aerial phenomena. What was once fringe is now a congressional hearing. These are not coincidences. They are catalyst events. According to ancient prophecy, the light age begins when humanity is forced to look up, when the sky itself becomes too mysterious, too magnificent, too undeniable to ignore. Sagan understood this. He warned that as our cosmic awareness expanded, our petty divisions would become absurd. And that is happening now. Our old systems are straining. Energy grids collapsing under pressure. Financial structures destabilizing. Governments scrambling to keep up with technologies they no longer control. From a mystic perspective, this isn't destruction, it's transition. The pressure is not a death spiral. It is the contraction before birth. Global crises are forcing global thinking. Global problems are forging planetary identity. We communicate across continents instantly. We collaborate across cultures in seconds. We are learning, slowly, painfully, that we cannot solve planetary problems with tribal minds. And through it all, Sagan's cosmic perspective is spreading like an immune response, an antidote to nihilism, nationalism, fragmentation. The prophecy said the light age would begin not with angels descending, but with illumination rising inside us, a perspective shift, a widening of the lens. The signs are everywhere, red with urgency, gold with possibility. The old world is cracking, and through those cracks, the light is trying to emerge. How does a civilization wake up? It never happens in a single moment. It begins in the margins, in small circles, isolated individuals, quiet contemplations, and then it spreads. From pockets to movements, from movements to waves, and eventually it becomes a tsunami of awareness. There is one unmistakable signal of this awakening, one that ties directly into Sagan's legacy, the pale blue dot. In 1990, at Carl Sagan's insistence, Voyager 1, already billions of miles away, speeding toward the edge of the solar system, was commanded to turn its camera back toward home. What it captured was not just an image. It was a message, a teaching, a mirror. Earth appeared as a tiny mote of dust suspended in a beam of light. A pixel, a point, insignificant by size, infinite in meaning. When you stare at that photograph, something ancient inside you fractures and then rearranges itself. The ego shrinks. The flags blur. The The divisions wash away. For a second, you're no longer a country, a career, a conflict. You are a witness. This is the overview effect, a cognitive transformation once reported only by astronauts who viewed Earth from space. But the prophecy of the light age says that what was once reserved for the few will become accessible to the many. And here we are, billions now experiencing this shift through a screen. This shift, this widening of identity, is not just psychological, it's evolutionary. At the same time, we are witnessing a massive inward turn. Meditation is no longer fringe, it's mainstream. Breath work, contemplative practices, mindfulness, these are becoming daily rituals worldwide. And they're not being used just to reduce stress. They're being used for self-inquiry, for awakening, for remembering something we lost. People are questioning the consumer's trance. Why am I working myself to death to accumulate objects that don't matter? Why does my soul feel malnourished in a world of abundance? Why does silence feel more honest than noise? These are not signs of collapse. They're symptoms of expansion, signs of a consciousness stretching beyond its old walls. Sagan wrote, "Our planet is a lonely speck in the great, enveloping cosmic dark. There is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves." On the surface, it sounds like a warning, but at a deeper level, it's an activation, a challenge, a shift from dependency to responsibility. The Light Age prophecy has always been about maturity, about realizing we are the stewards of our fate, not the passengers. This awakening is also visible in our relationship with the biosphere. For centuries, humanity saw Earth as a treasure chest, infinite resources, infinite extraction. Now, science is aligning with indigenous wisdom. Earth is not a warehouse. It is a system, a symphony, perhaps even a living organism. Sagan understood this long before it became fashionable. His warnings about climate, ecology, and planetary stability were not just scientific, they were spiritual. To wound the pale blue that is not merely an environmental failure, it is a cosmic betrayal. So when you see people planting food instead of lawns, when you see movements defending rivers, when you see a child refusing plastic, when you see compassion toward animals becoming a global ethic, you are witnessing the light age in action. Not in temples, not in prophecies written on stone, but in the soil, the breath, the choices, the micro-revolutions of millions awakening simultaneously. The light age is not descending from the heavens. Humanity is rising to meet it. This brings us to you. If a new era is truly dawning, who are its builders? Who are its midwives? In spiritual circles, we often use the word light worker. It's a term wrapped in mist, in mysticism, in ideas that can feel unreachable. But let's reinterpret it through the lens of the Sagan archetype. A light worker is not necessarily someone who channels spirits or performs energy healing, though it can be. In the context of the coming light age, a light worker is anyone who unites reason and compassion. Think about it. Carl Sagan was a light worker. He used his mind to decode the universe, but he used his heart to communicate it. He did not wield science as a weapon to belittle. He used it as a lantern to illuminate. He brought the light of understanding into the shadow of ignorance. Your role in this transition is to be a bridge. We are living in a world drowning in misinformation, cynicism, and fear. To be a light worker now is to hold the frequency of clarity. It means being the person who pauses before reacting, the one who seeks truth even when it's uncomfortable, the one who refuses to be swept away by the emotional storms of the collective. Listen closely. You do not need a massive platform to do this. You do it at the dinner table, in your office, in your friendships. When you choose curiosity over judgment, you anchor the light age. When you protect the vulnerable, whether it's a person, an animal, or a fragile patch of earth, you become a guardian of the timeline. Sagan said, "For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love." That single line contains the mandate of the modern light worker. Science gives us the scale, the overwhelming vastness. Spirituality gives us the medicine, the love that helps us survive it. And if you are here listening to this, it is likely not by accident. You feel the pull to merge the logical and the magical. You sense that technology without ethics becomes a weapon, but technology infused with consciousness becomes a tool for liberation. Your task is simple, but not easy. To keep your internal light, your hope, your reason, your kindness, burning even when the winds of the world howl and try to blow it out. This is not just poetic language. It is physics. In a universe drifting toward entropy, chaos, and decay, you are the organizing force. You are the pocket where order, beauty, and meaning crystallize. You are the improbable flame that refuses to go out. We cannot speak of the light without speaking of the shadow. This is where so many narratives fall apart. They promise a utopia without acknowledging the monster in the basement. The transition to the light age is not a bypass. It is not an escape. It is a passage. We must walk through the valley of the shadow of death. There is no other way. Carl Sagan understood this deeply. He wrote The Demon-Haunted World, science as a candle in the dark, a warning, a prophecy, a map of the terrain we now find ourselves crossing. In it, he described what happens when a society abandons critical thinking and loses its compassion. He predicted a time when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues. Look around. Does that sound familiar? The shadow work of humanity right now is confronting our own ignorance and our addiction to comfortable lies. The shadow is the anti-science movement, but is also the cold, soulless arrogance of scientific materialism. The shadow is religious fanaticism, but it is also the nihilism that whispers, nothing matters. The shadow is conspiracy thinking, but it is also the complacency that follows authority without question. The shadow is everywhere we refuse to look. We are living through the dark night of the collective soul. We are being forced to face the consequences of centuries of extraction, domination, and amnesia. If the light age is to emerge, we must turn inward. Where are you rigid in your thinking? Where do you cling to certainty as a shield? Where does fear shape your worldview? Sagan taught us that the unknown is not the monster. Our fear of the unknown is. Fear is the mind killer. Fear makes us hoard. Fear makes us hate. Fear makes us hide. Shadow work is not the battle against fear. It is the illumination of fear. You don't fight the shadow with anger. You dissolve it with understanding. We see the shadow every time an algorithm divides us into tribes that scream across digital borders. We see it in wars fought over ancient lines, on a planet that, from space, has no lines at all. We see it in leaders who weaponize confusion. We see it in institutions collapsing under their own contradictions. The prophecy tells us that before the light age stabilizes, the shadow thrashes. It screams. It claws. It tries to drag us backward into superstition, tribalism, and fear. Your task is not to be seduced by the cynicism. When you witness darkness in the world, see it for what it is, the unhealed psyche of humanity, surfacing to be seen, to be understood, to be released. Sagan did not turn away from the horrors of nuclear war, of climate collapse, of human cruelty. He looked directly at them and said, "We can do better." That, right there, is shadow work, acknowledging the danger without surrendering the hope, recognizing the darkness without forgetting the light, holding the candle while walking through the haunted house of history. And just like Sagan, that is what you are being asked to do now. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't realize they're choosing a timeline at all. They think the future is something that happens to them, not something they co-create. But the universe is participatory. Reality is not a movie you watch. It is a script you help write. Carl Sagan hinted at this when he spoke of humanity as the mechanism for the cosmos to know itself. If consciousness is not just a byproduct of matter, but a field of fabric, then every thought, every act of attention, every moment of awareness is a vote cast in the ballot box of the future. Imagine this. Timeline A is driven by fear. Timeline B is driven by curiosity. Fear collapses possibility. Curiosity expands it. On Timeline A, humanity becomes smaller every year. Smaller in compassion, smaller in imagination, smaller in courage. On Timeline B, humanity grows into responsibility, into maturity, into the realization that we are caretakers of a planet, not its owners. Think about this. If the light age is real, and it is real as a potential, then it already exists as a probability wave, a shimmering outline, a blueprint encoded in the collective mind of our species. But a blueprint is useless unless someone decides to build, and that someone is us. Every generation imagines itself standing at the crossroads of history, but we actually are. This is not poetic exaggeration. We are the first species in known cosmic history to wield planet-altering power without having planet-level wisdom. That imbalance is the great filter. The question is not, will the light age come? The question is, will we grow up fast enough to meet it? Because the light age is not a prophecy of destiny. It is a prophecy of potential. Sagan warned us that the visions we offer our children shape the future. He meant that timelines begin in myth, in story, in imagination. If we can imagine the light age vividly enough, kindly enough, courageously enough, we can manifest it. This is why shadow work matters. This is why education matters. This is why wonder matters. Because these things shift the timeline. You are not insignificant. You are not powerless. In a quantum universe, every mind is a fulcrum. Every heart is a lever. Every act of consciousness tilts the probabilities for everyone else. And perhaps, just perhaps, this is the real great filter. Not a war, not a catastrophe, not a collapse, but whether a species can awaken to the realization that its destiny is chosen moment by moment, thought by thought, timeline by timeline. So, how do we cross the threshold? How do we truly embrace this new era? It begins with integrating the awe of the cosmos into your everyday life. The coming light age is not about escaping Earth to Mars or to heaven. It is about bringing the frequency of the stars down to your streets, your home, your body. It is about spiritualizing the mundane. Sagan taught us that skepticism and wonder are not enemies. They are the two legs we need to walk forward. You need skepticism to filter the lies, and you need wonder to keep your heart open to the mystery. Embracing this era means becoming a student of life once again. Look at a leaf, notice the sunlight captured, converted, sustaining life. That is a miracle. Look into the eyes of another human. See a fellow traveler on this spinning rock. The prophecy is fulfilled when we stop waiting for a savior and realize that we are the star stuff we have been waiting for. Imagine a world where the cosmic perspective is normal, where schools teach empathy alongside mathematics, where leaders understand that borders vanish when viewed from space, where harming the planet is recognized as harming ourselves. This world is not a fantasy. It is possible. It is near, but it requires you to claim it. You embrace the new era by living as if it is already here, with profound humility, radical curiosity, and fierce protection of life. The texts were decoded. The signs are flashing. The awakening is happening. The shadow is visible. The timelines are diverging. The prophecy of the light age is not a script written by someone else. It is a blank page, and the pen has been handed to you. As Carl Sagan reminded us, we are the way for the cosmos to know itself. So let us ensure that when the universe gazes through our eyes, what it finds is a species worthy of the stars for which it came. Keep looking up, but more importantly, keep waking up